Greetings, Admirals! Welcome back to UA Dreadnoughts. I thought I would record some more of this rather than do warships today, because I felt like it, I guess. Do I need more reason than that? We had a fairly good first and a bit episode where the first attempt at recording didn't go so well, but yeah, I actually, after recording the video that ended up going on YouTube, I dug into my computer and tried plugging and unplugging some fans, and I think I've removed the culprit, but it does now mean I've got one less case fan. Shouldn't make a big difference, I wouldn't think, but I do need to buy some more when I have some spare money to do so. Anyway, so let's advance things a bit. We are starting off fairly nicely ahead on victory points, and oh dear, okay. We have an ambush. One of our battleships is being ambushed by a whole bunch of destroyers, so we might just turn tail and see if we can get away. They do have to get fairly close to actually try and drop on me, but yeah, 9 destroyers, that's quite the swarm. So if I stick it on retreat, it'll automatically put you or try and put you away from all enemies essentially. So yeah, let's see how this goes, although I suspect they may well catch up with me, just because 17.7 knots is not fast. It really isn't, and it's going to be a while before my refit battleships come online, and even then they're not very fast. But I suspect battleships will just continue to be slow until we can get better engine technology. So there they are. I'm guessing they are, in fact, yeah, it looks like they're running 3 separate groups, so they may try and flank. Guess we'll see. Crew training is still not particularly good, so this is just going to be lots of avoiding, if at all possible. And yeah, they do have at least one reload, or well, one reload. Sometimes you'll see AI building ships that have one lot of torpedoes and that's that. But in this case, yes, they do have a reload, which I don't think was that uncommon historically. I mean, like contrary to what happens in World of Warships, and even in this game, the idea of reloading torpedoes in the middle of a battle was, I think, pretty uncommon, if not just a thing that you didn't do, because, you know, these are large explosive devices, and if you're in the middle of a battle and there's guns going off and whatnot, then yeah, that can be a bit of an issue. And even just having deck-mounted torpedo launchers on larger ships could be an issue, as I think the Japanese in particular found out to their cost at times. It's certainly a reason why pretty much nobody put deck-mounted launchers on battleships, because there generally wasn't much point to it. Although the Germans did. I think they removed them later in the war, but yeah, certainly some of the World War II German battleships, the 30s designs, had deck-mounted launchers. Right, they're getting awfully close. Gunners, if you could actually hit anything with these point-blank range ships, that would be nice. We've got those coming in from the other side. Yeah, it looks like 2 of the groups are together, and then yeah, this group of, oh, that's the torpedo, and that's a bit of a spread, so we're actually turning away. But the problem is, of course, we turn. I don't think they're close enough. That's the group of 2. That group. No, that's not. What group is that group then? Are they all just muddled up? I think that might be the group of 3. No, that's the group of 3. So what group are they in then? But I don't know. There is a group of 2. So I think it's the group of 4. But oh, okay, it's the group of 4, but they're split up weirdly. That doesn't make any sense, but what do I know? Right, let's straighten up a bit. That first group is going to miss, but of course we have subsequent waves coming in. I don't want to turn hard this way and put myself into such a hard state of turn that I then just totally vulnerable to the next group kind of thing. Right, we don't have particularly potent secondaries on this ship, but this particular hull design is pretty poor for secondaries overall. You've got these gun ports and a couple of casemate ports there, but like there's virtually nothing that covers the rear sector. You've got gun ports on either side of that secondary bit of superstructure, but yeah, the actual angles of the gun ports are really poor. And the only thing that we have firing directly backwards is these 2-inch guns on the secondary mast, the rear tower. So yeah, these things are pretty bad unsupported. I don't know why this battleship was off on its own. We're going to have to discipline this captain, clearly, for doing such a silly thing as going off unescorted in a battleship. It's not like we don't have other ships that could escort. I don't know how the game decides to generate missions like this. I mean, there's clearly something behind it based on how you have your ships, whether they're in sea control or fleet in being, and presumably based on which port they're in and which sea area they're in. You know, which sea areas they have access to. But yeah, it is a bit random as to what ships it puts into any given mission. And it does mean that you end up with somewhat unrealistic scenarios like this, unless, of course, you know, the captain is just that incompetent. Maybe he's on loan from the Russian, was it the 2nd Pacific Squadron, or whatever the name of that one disastrous fleet voyage was, from all the way around from the north of Russia, and they were attempting to get round to face off against the Japanese fleet. Yeah, we haven't encountered any trawlers dropping torpedoes yet, but who knows. If you don't know that story, I highly recommend it. I know Jingles has covered it, and Drachinefel's definitely done a video, and there are probably other history YouTube channels that and podcasts that have covered it as well, because it's just such an entertainingly mad story. It really does have a bit of everything. Anyway, these are really getting worryingly close. If it had properly split the groups, instead of there being like half of that group there and half of that group there, they might be more actively trying to flank me, because that is something I've noticed the AI can try and do. It will bring up groups of ships on either side of your ship in this kind of position, and obviously that can be pretty nasty if you're in a slow manoeuvring ship that in this case doesn't have a lot of secondary protection. It's really only got its rear 10-inch gun and those 2-inch guns there available. One thing that would be nice, and this is an absolute failing of I think a lot of games, is that there's no independent targeting of different things. So I mean, for I think a while in World of Warships it was the case that your secondaries could only fire one thing, and it's only in the last 3-4 years where possibly something like 3 years, where you've been able to have your secondaries firing from both sides, even if you have a kind of secondary focus skill. And it would be really nice if you could have your secondaries going from both sides, if you have enemies going on both sides, or if you have a situation like this where you have you know, the rear turret can obviously get angles on these, but we have ships within the arc of the front turret, but the front turret can't do anything. You can't independently target the front turret. So I think there needs to be that level of granularity in terms of the player being able to control what their ship is actually firing at, because that's a real deficiency at the moment. I think in this kind of scenario in real life, you know, you would absolutely be trying to use all available guns to defend yourself, and as it is, we have this entire sort of unprotected quadrant where we could be utilizing this firepower, and due to the limitations of the game mechanics, we just can't. Anyway, we've heavily damaged this. Well, I say heavily damaged, it's flooding heavily, and it's lost an engine, it's on fire. So that's enough to snarl the line up a bit. I think that one's taken a bit of engine damage, but oh, there we go, they've just repaired it. That was light engine damage. It'd be nice if they could shade the symbols so you can see whether it's going to be repairable engine damage or not, because at the moment the only real way of telling is if you see the kind of mid compartments turn red, then yeah, that's a permanent knockout. But you can't always necessarily tell. I mean, if it's flooded, you can't tell. But then if it's flooded and it's not being pumped out, then you can tell eventually that it is a compartment that cannot be cleared. Right, here we have torpedoes from the front quarter. This is why I've started this turn, but they've only dropped the single tube. So yeah, they haven't actually dropped the twin tube. We have them on the other side, but they're not quite in range yet. This is just going to be slow motion torpedo dodging as much as possible, but with this many ships and with that much speed advantage and with as poor protection as I have, yeah, this is going to be the first of certainly, I'm sure, several hits. We're probably going to lose this battleship, but we'll see what we can do in the meantime. So that was a heavy hit. It was amidships, and I really hope that hasn't just permanently knocked out all engines at once, because that would be incredibly bad. That would just leave my ship as a sitting duck at that point. But it might be. I mean, yeah, they're starting to flood, and it's always the center section, so it doesn't really have anything to do with where the funnels are. They might add that as a more kind of dynamic placement feature later on. As I said in the last one, they're planning to add a more dynamic citadel feature, or placement for ships based on where the turrets are. But yeah, one thing it does do compared to 1.04 is the placement of the funnel does have some effect on the overall the pitch and roll of your ship and the kind of center weight placement. So you can there are a couple of ship hulls where you can place, just because you can place the superstructure really far forward or the aft superstructure really far back, and you can actually then end up placing the turrets at the extremes of the hull, which can lead to some really terrible designs in terms of the pitch. So generally speaking, not a good idea to do that, even though it can result in some very funky looking designs. But yeah, it's a bit abstracted. I think there's always going to be quite a fair bit of abstraction in a game like this, just to get things working in this modular fashion. But I do wonder, I mean, I don't know if there's plans for mods for this game at any point, because, you know, looking at Kerbal Space Program, where you take a bunch of parts and put them together and make rockets, you know, there have been mods that dramatically increase the overall realism. So I don't know. I don't know if they plan for this to be a moddable game, or even if not, if modders will somehow find a way anyway, as sometimes happens, and we'll have, you know, ultra realism. Probably not. But it would be interesting to see if modders could I mean, even go as far as like adding in new hulls and guns and stuff, but it's more likely it would be modifying the values of things that are already in game. That's generally the lower hanging fruit, as opposed to full on, you know, modeling, 3D modeling and texturing stuff to go in the game, and then doing all the additional everything that needs to make it functional. Anyway, been blathering away about nothing in particular. Yeah, I think we are dead in the water. It would have been better to try and take that torpedo hit on the bow. We still would have lost some mobility with the water on board, but these engines are knackered, and I don't think there's any way of fixing them. So yeah, I think we might just put the time forward a bit, see if we can do any damage, essentially. I'm surprised they aren't just trying to swarm in to finish me off, but maybe they're just gathering their courage to do that. Oh, okay, wow, this is super cheesy. It's just popped up to end battle. So if we click on that, we get to save the ship. Even though that makes no sense whatsoever. That's super gamey, that the fact that I can just click that button and not lose the ship. But, you know, clearly we're operating in an era of gentlemen's agreements, and, you know, it's the age of naval chivalry or something like that. Yeah, that's totally it. So the enemy destroyers just agreed to give up and go home. That's what happened. Yeah, I don't know. So we actually now have the opposite scenario, but it's far fewer of my own small craft versus 2 enemy battleships, and I'm pretty sure the British battleship hulls are far better suited in terms of secondaries. But let's give it a go. These are fairly small, fairly easy to replace ships, and even if we just, like, I'll try and sink one. I think we'll concentrate on sinking one, and we'll see how we go. It'll be interesting to see how these do, because as I noted last time, these are almost more capable than the destroyers that I have, but they don't have smoke, which is an issue, because smoke really helps in terms of like targeting, or of disrupting enemy targeting. I mean, it disrupts your own targeting as well, but for torpedoes I don't think that matters as much. Right, so just a single hit. That one is almost flooding already, and yeah, probably going to lose that one. We really are relying on just the fact that we have multiple ships that are fairly fast. Oh, don't boop into each other. I think they're going to. If you just kind of, like, there you go. I'm basically having to use some sacrificially. Now I want you to keep... this is the problem when you have formations and they try and switch like that. That is super annoying. You're at least going to drop your torpedoes. You've dropped one torpedo, but you're going to actually get torpedoed by the battleship in return, so that's great. So let's, like, switch that to aggressive. Can you make this turn? I don't. I don't think we're. No. This isn't going to work. We just didn't have enough shit. Like, if we'd had twice this number, we might have managed to get at least one of their battleships. But as it was, no, that was just throwing away a bunch of torpedo boats. I was going to make some fresh designs for the torpedo boats and destroyers, and I didn't actually do that. So you know what? I'll do that now, but I'll skip ahead because it's a little bit frustrating using the designer at the moment, potentially. So this is the current design, which is rather overgunned for a torpedo boat, and I think it's using the larger hull, which can go up to 800 tons. So I've decided to use the smaller hull, de-emphasize the guns, and go for an extra torpedo tube. So I've also given it the longer range torps as well, and it's a bit faster, and I think it's also a bit cheaper. It was like 800k, and that one is 856k. So yeah, more emphasis on the actual torpedo part of being a torpedo boat. So that's fine. Now I just have to do the same for the destroyer, which is a bit of a weird hodgepodge, and we'll probably put a bit more into the guns of this one and probably make it a bit heavier in terms of tonnage as well, because yeah, that's a tiddler at the moment. And here we go, design number 2, definitely more expensive than the current destroyers, and they weigh a bit more, but they're a bit more of a rational design as well. So we've got 3 5-inch guns, 3 torpedo tubes with the 18-inch torp. So again, the up to the 1.5 kilometer torp range, which I don't think the existing ones have. I think they're both using the 17-inch ones, which only give like a, does it say? I'd have to click the refit button there, I think. Yeah, they're oh well, I guess it's the propulsion that's putting it down to the kilometer mark. But yeah, I've tried to make it a reasonably balanced design. So yeah, I think it looks not bad, and it should be a little bit more capable as a torpedo boat as well. But it is definitely a more expensive design. So we'll build a couple of those. We'll get a couple of those underway. We know we've lost like 4 torpedo boats already, so let's have like 10 torpedo boats, and finances I think are absolutely hunky-dory, so maybe like 10 destroyers as well. They're definitely more expensive than the previous design, but yeah, rather than trying to refit these, I think it's better to just do new designs. They actually have about as much armor in the center section as they can, but that was more than anything to reduce the pitch and roll by adding deck armor and belt armor. It doesn't really do much when it's only like 1.5 inches at most, but yeah. Anyway, we'll just quickly check where we are with research as well. We're a long ways off of doing that. I don't think we have any stuff being repaired, but I don't think there's anything immediately coming online. One torpedo boat. That's of the previous batch, and I think we'll wait till next month and then we'll maybe set another pair of battleships refitting as well. It does tell you, you know, like who's sort of laying down new ships, but unless you have seen that class of ship in battle, you don't necessarily know exactly what they're capable of. It would be interesting to have some kind of intelligence, well, it would absolutely be, you know, fully naval intelligence component where you can try and guess your enemy ship's capabilities, but that would then like you at the moment, once you've identified the ship actually in battle, you can then just see precisely the enemy ship's capabilities. It would be nice if there was some kind of fog of war element around that where you don't get to know precisely what the enemy ships can do unless you have like a really high level of infiltration of their, you know, naval design bureaus. I think that would be quite an interesting component to add to the game, because Hearts of Iron does try to do that. They, in terms of there being a kind of level of fuzziness based on how much intel you have on your enemies, and that kind of informs you as to how precise your estimates are of their kind of overall troop numbers, tech levels, and I think the better intelligence, you can start to tell things like, you know, what focus tree thing they're working on, stuff like that. So it wouldn't have to be quite that comprehensive, but it would be nice if there was an element of fuzziness to this game in terms of knowing the enemy ship's capabilities. Because, you know, going into a war you would have some idea, but you wouldn't necessarily know the absolute precise, you know, armor thicknesses or reload times or stuff like that, just based on what intel you'd managed to sort of passively garner from you know, even stuff like, you know, your agents just being able to view their ships and see what caliber of guns they have, or, you know, scour public publications and stuff like that. But at the moment it's like the equivalent of, well, you know, we get to see the full blueprints from the shipyards and know exactly, you know, what components they have and what kind of explosives and propellants they're using and all that jazz. So yeah, I mean, even if that was just a toggleable option, that would be quite fun to have the option of not knowing and slowly uncovering their capabilities through actual engagements. Anyway, that's the kind of thing that would be a sort of a nice thing to have, but not really essential to the game actually being fun. Right, we do have a bit better of a setup this time. This has way more secondaries than my battleships in terms of, like, we've got these 5-inch casemate guns, we've got a bunch of 4-inch twin mounts, we've got these 2-inch twin mounts, we've got these 2-inch, and we've got torpedoes, and the primary 7-inch guns are also reasonably fast firing as well. So this is a far less scary situation than that battleship where I was absolutely able to cheese it and just press the get out of jail free button, whereas in this case I can actually sink these destroyers as they try and chase up on me. And they're not even trying to smoke. This is still at the stage of things where destroyers, and I've said this previously, you know, even with 1.5 kilometer torps, they still have to get pretty close to use them. And if you have any effective level of secondary defense, then that's generally enough. It's when you get into the later time periods and torpedo ranges are getting longer and longer. I think in 1940, maybe even 1930, with the oxygen tech and the biggest possible torpedoes, you can get 20+ kilometers on your torpedoes and make them really hard to detect at the same time. So, you know, if you want to build a Sashios effectively in or well, not even a Sashio, but you know, use 20-kilometer torpedoes like the Shima has and the Shino has in one of warships. That is an option, and it's also really hard to deal with. So yeah, by the time you get to those later time periods, you really have to have good torpedo defences, and it also really helps to have obviously things like hydro and sonar as well. So yeah, absolutely don't neglect those. Right, this destroyer's flooding out a bit, but that doesn't look like it's red compartment. They are trying to pump out, but you know, small ship doesn't have a lot of I believe reserve buoyancy would be the phrase, and it also depends on can we see there? Yeah, they've only got standard bulkheads, and they do have anti-flood 1, but I don't know if we can see, because you've got the 2 bulkhead settings. You've got your ability to put in reinforced bulkheads 1 or 2, depending on the tech level. But you've also got the kind of the default, I don't know what you would call them, the architectural bulkheads. So it's sort of like you're deciding how many bulkheads to put in your ship, and then you're deciding how effective those bulkheads are going to be with the reinforced bulkheads component. So I can't tell if they have like few or many bulkheads. It doesn't seem like they have a lot of bulkheads given how easily they're flooding out. Anyway, that slightly recoups my point losses from earlier. Quite an easy 4 kills. If somebody wants to point out, by the way, what would be the best way of like setting task forces and blockading ports, because I still really don't have an idea about that. Because I have tried to do it once or twice and I've successfully intercepted groups of ships, but then sometimes the group I send out then gets intercepted by a larger group of ships, and you end up fighting at a disadvantage. And yeah, I don't know if you try and move to a blockade an enemy port, does that then force a shore bombardment mission, or is that just effectively trapping ships in port? But given that they do have still a fair number of ships, and they are starting to try and build up their battleships a bit, yeah, I don't know if that's a really sensible idea. Although on the other hand, I have so many battleships myself that maybe I'm kind of wasting it. Maybe I should be trying to do that. Also, that is over capacity apparently. I don't know if that, like, what effect does being over capacity have? I have no idea. But let's move the let's move some ships to like a battleship, 2 battleships, because we have a lot of battleships there, 3 battleships, and maybe a host of these destroyers, and maybe a heavy cruiser. Yeah, let's move them, because mostly, like, they don't have really much in the Baltic. We have a convoy interception there. That's probably going to be a lone destroyer, a lone torpedo boat approaching our convoys. So yeah, let's give that a go. This is probably going to be short and sharp either way. Like, whoever eats a torpedo first loses effectively. So we'll have to be very, very careful, and probably still fail horrendously. Right, so these are 4-inch, 2 4-inch, 3 2-inch. The 5-inch ones I put on my new class are possibly overkill for the time period. But in terms of the amount of space I had, like 4-inch guns would have taken up the same space, and I maybe could have tried to cram in a couple of 2-inch guns around the edges somewhere, but that wouldn't necessarily have had particularly good arcs of fire. Anyway, where are you, little torpedo boat? This may take a little bit longer. Oh, although we have just gone down to ×5 speed, so we're pretty close now. It's a good way of telling when you're close to unspotted ships. So when it suddenly shifts down like that. So there it is. They are operating with, I think, 1.5 kilometers torque range. We've only got 1 kilometer, so yeah, I do have the ability to smoke up, but that will impede my own ability to aim just as much as them. That looks... Are they just packing a single torque tube? What is the tonnage of that? 466 tons. One single torque tube with a single torpedo. So basically, that doesn't seem like a terribly effective torpedo boat design with just one single tube. And it's not like it's got a super heavy gun layout. Not that you can put a super heavy gun layout on torpedo boat, but yeah, the AI does do wacky things, as we saw with my own torpedo boats. But yeah, if we can bait their single, like, once they've fired, if they fire their single torpedo at me, which we'll see, yeah, that will be enough. Hell, even if they did get to my transports, I mean, do any of my transports have guns? Don't know if they do. I still don't know what governs that. I don't know if there's a technology that governs whether the transports spawn with guns or if it's just completely random. But in this case, yeah, they don't. But even the 3 and 4 inch guns that transports can spawn with would probably be enough to see off a single torpedo boat with a single torpedo. Okay, I think we can comfortably speed this up. We're not going to do lots and lots of torpedo dodging. It's not going to take too many hits either. We do have the bigger guns. And is green better than cadets, or is cadets better than green? I'm not actually sure. Now, base accuracy seems to be higher than theirs. Let's take a quick look. So yeah, they're hard to hit just because they're so small and they're maneuvering hard. I'm maneuvering. There's evening light coming into play, which you wouldn't, like, you would think the light conditions, unless it's, you know, actively stormy or a fog or something like that, you would think the light conditions would affect the range at which things get spotted, but it seems to like they seem to have made it affect gunnery instead. It's just a kind of flat thing. And I don't know, was that an issue historically of, you know, if you were trying to aim a ship that was kind of into the sun relative to you, would that have been an issue? Were there systems in place to actually deal with that? But yeah, I don't think the game really is like, oh, the sun is over in that direction, so therefore if you're aiming in that direction you'll have a harder time of it. It's just a flat modifier based on the weather penalties and bonuses. So yeah, yeah. So if we click on them, their crew training is 10.9 and mine is only mine is 3.8. So I'm guessing green is better than cadets, which you wouldn't necessarily be able to just guess looking at the way they've named it. It would be easier, I think, if they would just have like some kind of numerical value of the crew, you know, experience levels. Because at the moment there is definitely a bit of guesswork. Anyway, taking a bit of damage. I'm a bit loath to try and get in close enough to definitely torpedo them, because that one torpedo they have would absolutely wreck me. Well, I think it's more through luck than skill, but they've yet to land a single shot, whereas I have landed 2k worth of damage already, apparently. Let's say 1.8k. Let's say, oh, that'll be the fire damage that they've taken as well. And yeah, they're really not doing so well. So between the fire damage and the hits, they're really in a pretty sore state right now. I could once again click the end battle button, but because I'm in control of that, you know, I get to be unkind and decide that this time round the AI doesn't get to cheese it and keep a ship that it rightfully shouldn't. We're just going to sink them and claim the victory, because yeah, I absolutely do get to do that as the human player. Yeah, our hits are really doing damage to them. There we go. Even without the flooding, we nearly like destroyed them structurally. So yeah, all without taking a single hit ourselves. Flawless victory. Right, so before we click next turn, I was going to start another pair of battleships refitting, so we'll do that because they are going to take a while. So it's kind of staggering the refit. So I've got 5 months, 7 months, 9 months. We have enough, more than enough battleships that this isn't going to significantly disrupt anything. And we also have several new battleships that are being built as well. I could maybe just design a whole new battleship, but the refit is significant enough and we have enough of these battleships that I think it's cheaper just to refit rather than build whole new hulls. And there isn't really any advantage yet either. We haven't progressed enough technology wise, because as you go through certain technologies it'll do things like reduce armor weight, or it'll reduce funnel weight or boiler weight, or you know, the engine weight there. Yeah, or you know, give new superstructure, you know, front and rear towers. So as you go through, you get the benefit of these techs, even if they aren't necessarily unlocking new parts. But of course, they only then apply to new ships or refitted parts on older ships. So they don't kind of magically apply to existing ships. So that there really isn't much point in doing a new design at the moment, in that it wouldn't really do anything that the existing designs aren't, unless I wanted to do something like have a battleship with a different gun caliber. And maybe then make some sacrifices, or maybe try and have a faster battleship that has much smaller guns. But you know, is that then going to be worth it? Because faster is going to be expensive in this era. Right. So having said that, I'm going to immediately disprove myself wrong, because I thought okay, I'll just actually double check what I'm saying. There's no point, and then I realised that we do have other battleship hulls available, and so I've kind of come up with this, and I don't know how great a design it is. It's only single 12-inch guns, and I've had to sacrifice doubles to get it up to a 20 knot speed. I could maybe reduce the range a bit, but that's not going to free up that much. I don't know if that'll give me enough for doubles, but it is reasonably well protected. It does have a fairly decent speed. Can't even get up to like 21 knots with that. 22? Can we go completely nuts? No. Okay. I think 21 knots is... there's definitely a threshold between 21 and 22 with the triple expansion steam tech. So yeah, I could maybe use that last bit of weight to... I think we can stick another funnel on there and get that engine efficiency up. So I don't think there would be enough. That's 400 and what tons? Oh yeah, no, that's a big enough gap that I don't think we would manage that. That is over 200 tons. Which, if we got rid of that, we might be able to swap out one of these turrets, but then we'd be getting balance issues, and that would affect the pitch and roll. So I mean, I guess it's certainly got a much better secondary suite than the existing classes, but I suspect this is going to be much more expensive as well, because these ones are... can we even see how much they cost? No, the refit doesn't give you the cost. They're going to be 5 million. These are over twice as expensive. So yeah, a much better hull, but you know, fewer main barrels, even if they are bigger. I suppose I could have gone with twin 11-inch guns, but the 12-inch guns are like, they have got better base accuracy. So I don't know. I might build a few of these, but they're pretty expensive. So given how many battleships we have, I don't think we need to start thinking about replacing them wholesale. I mean, quantity has a quality all of its own, as the saying goes. But yeah, they are significantly larger and significantly more expensive, and I don't know if it's arguably worth the extra expense, but we do have the cash to burn. So, well, not burn, but we've got cash to spare, so you know what, we'll set a quartet of those building. So, yeah, I like how I said, you know, I was quite declarative and said, oh yeah, there's no point, and then immediately contradicted myself. So, well done me. Right, well, I think this will be the one we finish the recording with. A couple of my battleships and some supporting ships versus heavy cruisers, light cruisers, and a couple of torpedo boats. So, this is more of a meaty matchup, and potentially one I should have no difficulty in winning, because we know that their cruisers do not have torpedoes. It's only the torpedo boats that have torpedoes, and they only have single torpedoes. So as long as we don't completely mess this up, let's have you follow that line, and let's set you to scout rather than screen. I don't know how much a difference that makes, and then we'll set you to screen. We'll set the bigger group. Right, so spotted to the south. Let's speed things up, and let's make sure everyone has the torp avoidance turned on as well. Generally speaking, even though it causes all kinds of weirdness, it's better to have it turned on than not. But there are times when you have to turn it off for a bit just to get ships to unstick themselves. I'm having a little bit of chaos here as things are trying to get into position, and therefore trying to avoid other ships and not necessarily doing it that successfully. Right, oh, they're fully destroyers, so that's fine. Right, so that's going to be the heavy cruisers that I've spotted first. That is in fact a light cruiser. That's the heavy cruiser. So what was it, like 3 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and the rest was torpedo boats. And the torpedo boats have actually popped up on the other flank, so we can turn towards the yeah, they're all aimed at that already, that's fine. Turn towards the larger group of ships, because we know they cannot torpedo us, even though there's all this smoke, but it's only cruisers, because torpedo boats cannot smoke. So we can actually speed things up a bit there, and try and get a bit more of an overview. I think I might, for this main group, should we turn off the avoid collision thing, just to try and get them to stick together a bit more effectively. Because there's all these destroyers swarming all over the place. Now, are you a torpedo boat? Okay, yes, there are some torpedo boats mixed in with this main formation, so actually we do have to be a bit careful. They're not coming at me all from one flank. They are split into 2 groups, apparently. So, we'll have them pop. You're going to take that. Yep, well, that wasn't really avoiding the torpedo, was it? But never mind. I did definitely have that turned on. Sometimes they just decide they're going to run straight into the torpedo. Actually, I don't know if I... with the redesigned class, did I remember to put them... I think the destroyers I put on unbalanced steering, but I don't think I did for the torpedo boats. But it's not that big of a deal. I mean, torpedo boats and destroyers do end up being fairly disposable. Certainly in this earlier time period when everything's basically taking place at knife fighting range. It would have... I don't know how it compares to anything like historical engagements with lots of torpedo boats involved. I'm looking at you, Battle of Tsushima, but yeah, certainly in UA Dreadnoughts anyway, it would absolutely suck to be assigned to a destroyer or a torpedo boat for the most part, because your survivability would be horrendously low. You have a very low chance of, in any given engagement, actually surviving. Right, one of their cruisers got taken out already. That had to have been torpedoes. Yeah, so 2 torpedo hits. That was nice. And if we get this pair of TBs out of the way, that just leaves that lone TB up there. That's fine. You can mouse drag to select your own, but you can't mouse drag to select enemy ones, and sometimes it's quite hard to click, you know, with the smaller ones. It could be quite hard to click. So yeah, you can also select them from the top here and pop that out and see the individual ships. So that's possibly the easier way of doing it overall. Right, let's have you curl back round. This should be a fairly one-sided fight, to be honest. I don't see this posing too much difficulty. They just don't have the torpedoes to be worried about, and without the torpedoes as a force leveler, as it were. Yeah, they've expended their torps already, so they're basically nothing to worry about. Like, their guns aren't going to do much. So yeah, torpedoes are the great leveler. Although occasionally you'll get nasty things happening, you know, unpleasant RNG like flash fires or ammo detonations, which can be very nasty. Generally flash fires are worse than ammo detonations, but ammo detonations can be quite bad as well. But if we don't wipe this entire enemy force, I will be very surprised. Do we kill that one torpedo boat? Or is that still... I think we did. Oh no, we're still... Okay, that's showing a group, so that's naffed off around there somewhere. That's fine. If one torpedo boat gets away, well, that just means... it's like the... I can't think of an example, but you know the thing in fiction sometimes where it's like, oh, you gotta leave one left alive to tell the others what we did here, sort of thing. It's that one enemy torpedo boat that will be left to carry away the tale of doom of all of their comrades. Right, we can definitely speed this up now. We don't need to have torp avoidance on anymore. Well, actually, maybe I'll leave it on just in case we end up with our allies trying to torp things. Did the... Oh, our torpedo boats, both of those sank, but all the destroyers are still in commission, so that's fine. And I think they've actually expended all their torpedoes, apart from one. This one still has some torps. We'll actually get them to pop their smoke. There is one kind of bug / exploit at the moment where swapping destroyers between different groups can... I'm not sure the exact way it happens, but I've noticed a couple of times if you swap destroyers between groups, it can reset the smoke screen, so you can just have, like, even before the smoke screen is finished, you'll have the smoke screen button ready to click again, and you can have an extended smoke screen time. So yeah, it's pretty cheesy, but you can do that potentially. Right, they're now trying to run away, and they do have a bit of speed to do that, but our destroyers are also fairly fast, although only one of them has torpedoes, so the rest of them are just rubbish little gunboats now. So yeah, maybe I should have tried to put an equal number of torps on as I did with the torpedo boats, but I kind of wanted the torpedo boats to have, I guess, as I'm sure they did more historically, you know, have the actual focus be on the torpedoes. But yeah, it is in that overlapping era where you've got TBs and DDs, and the DDs gradually end up essentially supplanting the role that they were originally invented to counter. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of I'm using the right word, but the you know, torpedo boats were invented because, you know, it was this new invention, the torpedo, and we need some kind of small, fast delivery system to actually get close enough to enemy ships, because early torpedoes really did have a terrible range and they were very slow. And so, okay, we need some other small class of ships to counter this new threat, aside from all of our many mixed battery guns on our ships and our cruisers. And then eventually the destroyers became the very thing they swore to destroy. Yeah, I had to get Star Wars in there somehow, right? Anyway, so yeah, in French they're literally still called contre-torpilleur, which obviously reflects their original role rather than their current role. I wonder if do they call modern day destroyers contre-torpilleur? I don't know, because naval terminology has obviously changed quite a lot over the last like 70 years. I was watching a thing about the sinking of the Moskva. It was actually on the Battleship News Jersey channel, much like Bovington and the Royal Firearm Museum and other various museums and things that have realised the value of being able to do video stuff on YouTube. Yeah, they've got quite a good channel. They were sort of discussing the capabilities of the Moskva and the Slava class generally, and they didn't speculate too heavily on how it might have sunk beyond the kind of already extant speculation about you know, drones being used as a distraction, although I don't know how plausible that is. But yeah, they made the point that there's very few navies left that actually use cruiser in their nomenclature, and these days it's mostly things that are classed as frigates and destroyers, even though the tonnage of the frigates and destroyers is now kind of at where sort of cruisers and heavy cruisers were like 70 years ago, if not higher in some cases. I mean, you look at like I think the Slavas class, or they have like is it like 13,000 tons displacement, which would have been sort of World War II cruiser range. And goodness knows what the Kirov battle cruisers were in terms of their displacement, but equivalent of I don't even know, pre-dreadnought battleships, dreadnought battleships. I mean, if you consider how much the displacement ballooned of you know, going from pre-dreadnoughts to dreadnoughts. Someone pointed out under that Austria-Hungary video I did where I was using these 11,000 ton heavy cruisers. You know, that was bigger than most pre-dreadnought classes, and it's certainly bigger, you know, than these pre-dreadnought ships I've got here. So yeah, things really did move up quite rapidly until you had monsters sailing around like Iowas and Yamatos, and bigger things planned besides. Right, I think we might just have the destroyer screen fall back. They can't really do anything useful anymore. I don't think they've got the torpedoes left, and they're just gonna, like that one does. But yeah, there's no point in throwing the ships away. I might like the Bardens are faster ships, so I might have that sort of peel off and control it directly. Although I think it's really only the destroyers that are sort of keeping these things in engaged range. Man, you're really not aiming very well, are you? They've done something with the like the dispersion or the leading in, you know, the dialing in of shots or whatever. Like, it used to be much more clustered around the ship, but you know, whether or not it actually hit was obviously based on whatever formula. But now you get some really wildly divergent dispersion, like, you know, they'll be shooting at the ship that's there, but the shots all kind of land over here, sort of thing. So yeah, they've done something, and I don't know if it was intentional, if they meant to make things look that wacky, but it's certainly noticeable, and it does occasionally make you wonder what your gunners are drinking / smoking to be able to miss quite that wildly. Right, well, I've got my heavy cruiser closing in and will attempt to get a torpedo off. We'll see how that works. It'll involve turning broadside because it's only broadside tubes. But yeah, in terms of armour, I mean, they're out of HE already. I think in terms of armour we're pretty comparable. I don't think 7-inch guns can get through my bow that easily, but turning broadside is a bit risky. I might even just only have to hold course here, although I should probably turn just so I don't ram the Argyle there. Right, you should put out a torpedo. Yep, there it goes. It's a bit too slow there. No, see, I'm clicking game. Sometimes it takes a little moment to register. That should be fairly unpleasant for the Bedford. There we go, all engines knackered, severe flooding. Structural damage, yes, but not nearly as bad as it could be. So I'm kind of wondering, yeah, they've got anti-flood 2, anti-torp 1, and do they have better? It's hiding somewhere. No, standard bulkheads, so they don't have reinforced bulkheads at all. But again, we can't see the level of bulkheads. Right, so anyway, that's going to slow them down. They look like they might even just sink out entirely. We need to not be sat broadside to the Argyle. We don't want to lose a cruiser. Very nasty if our ammo decided to cook off. Yeah, the Bedford's not going anywhere. That's now a stationary target. You would think there would be some kind of bonus if you get this situation where you are shooting at a very stationary target, but no, it just basically removes all the penalties for them manoeuvring. It doesn't then give a bonus for them being dead still, which yeah, I don't know. Even if there was just like a small bonus for them being dead still, it would be nice if, like, see that was aimed at, or was it aimed at that ship actually? I can't tell, it just says CA, so I can't tell if they're aimed at that ship or if it was aimed at that ship, but somehow they managed to aim there. But right, okay, I think it is the secondary, so if I go like that, yeah, okay. So what I was saying last time, you can't tell which guns are aimed where without forcing them to switch, which does reset the lock-on, so yeah, you can end up screwing yourself a bit potentially. If you accidentally click to focus something that's already targeted, and you have even a semi-decent lock, you know, you're then wasting time because your gunners have to re-find the target range, even though they were just firing at it fully locked on only moments before. So you have to be careful not to do that. Right, that should be going down. They are very badly mauled. Although they still are able to fire their main guns, so what I was speculating about last time with heavy flooding removing the ability to... Oh no, but there we go, they've ceased fire, so maybe it's just, it has to be really heavy listing in order to prevent the guns from firing. But yeah, they are now helpless. They cannot fire back. So, yeah, that's that. for them, just about. You're still hanging around, but you're also basically dead in the water from flooding. They're not having a good day, but they are still afloat at least. Right, let's... oh, hello, it's that last torpedo boat's come out to play. They're over in that direction somewhere. Sometimes the only hint you get is from... oh, it wasn't even a torpedo boat, it was a light cruiser. The Enterprise, which is an actual ship name that the Royal Navy used. I think it was originally, it was like a French frigate. There were several names that ended up in the Royal Navy as a result of captured ships, essentially. And Enterprise was one of them. And I believe there's even a current HMS Enterprise. It's like a oceanographic ship. I think one of a pair that the Royal Navy operates. But yeah, the World War II Enterprise was actually a sister ship of the Emerald, for those that didn't know. And I believe the Emerald class that's in War Thunder is the Enterprise. But I don't know if it has got the twin forward turret, because one of them was refitted so it had a twin front turret. Of course, the Emerald we have in game is just all the single turrets. Right, we might actually be able to do another torpedoing here. Maybe a bit of an angle versus those would be useful. They do still have a torpedo boat somewhere, but yeah. It'd be nice for that heavy cruiser to not get away. Obviously, that's worth the most points. Right, we may get a chance for another torpedo launch here. They are actually doing a drive-by of me. And that has, yeah, that's kind of screwed the Enterprise. It literally sailed into that when it... I don't know why they turned around like that. But anyway, that torpedo hit was enough to just absolutely knock them out all in one go. Well, this heavy cruiser may end up getting away because they are faster. I mean, these light cruisers certainly are faster. They honestly could have just retreated. Which is something... I don't know how... Like, the AI doesn't seem to retreat its ships a lot. Like, I as a player have plenty of times used the option of just retreating, falling back, and putting enough distance between us that I can then hit the end battle button. But yeah, the AI... I mean, obviously the AI doesn't have the luxury of hitting the end battle button, but at a certain point you would think the AI would just be like, right, we're going to run all the way away, and that's what that heavy cruiser seems to be doing. But for some reason this light cruiser came back, and maybe the AI... I mean, maybe it was like, oh well, we'll sacrifice the light cruisers to try and get the heavy cruiser away. I mean, I don't know if the game logic is that sophisticated that it will try and do something like that. It'll try and distract enemy ships with its own lower value ships in order to let higher value ships get away. But given the speed advantage, they didn't have to do either. Both sets of ships just could have kept sailing away from me, and it would have been fine. But as it is, they've lost one light cruiser. They're probably going to lose this other light cruiser, and I guess it'll have accomplished the heavy cruiser getting away, because I really don't have anything left that can catch up with it effectively. This has had enough structural damage that it's down to about 19 knots top speed. I think that is mostly due to that forward partially flooded red compartment, which I don't know why that hasn't fully flooded. Sometimes compartments don't fully flood. Like, if you get more damage into a partially flooded red compartment, then yes, it will fully flood out, but I don't know. I don't know if... and it's still only standard bulkheads. Maybe it's got maximum number of bulkheads, and so that's why it's only partially flooded. Anyway, yeah, I'll just like now he's trying to run away again. We'll see if we can sink this. But I am close to clicking that end battle button just because this has been a pretty decisive win. We haven't quite wiped everything out, but it's been close enough as makes no difference. So I called it quits on that. Yeah, we did sink nearly everything. 1 torpedo boat, 1 light cruiser, 1 heavy cruiser, that was all that was left. So 10 times as many victory points from that. And we lost 2 torpedo boats ourselves, but otherwise we are absolutely fine. One thing I never remember to do is click on the ship stats screen, so you can actually click and see like who had the best main gun accuracy, although I don't know why that's not sorting that by. I have no idea what metric it's sorting that by, but for some reason it's putting 2.3 at the top, even though that one there has like 11. I don't know. Some of them it's sorting as you would think it would sort them by, but yeah, others not so much. So you can kind of see how much ammo they expanded, if they lost any main guns, secondary guns, what speed they ended the game at. XP, I'm guessing that's crew experience? Must be crew experience. Sort by weight, damage done, damage received, so yeah. It was actually the Barden that did by far the most damage, but I suspect that was thanks to those torpedo hits it was able to get in. The battleships were not nearly so effective. Though again, it's not quite sorting this logically. 3.2, 1.5, 1.3, 495, 389, 952, 1.7, 2.5, 4.8. Wait, so one of my battleships did actually do very well. I don't, like, this might just be buggy. It's showing there black as if it sank, but it definitely didn't sink, so I have no idea. I think this screen might be a little buggy at the moment, might not quite work as intended. Anyway, I will, no, okay, we can't withdraw there, but we can just go back to menu. I can just do what I did last time. So that battle will be for next time. This has been going on for long enough, so yes, thank you all for tuning in, and yeah, I think I'll try and do the next videos World Warships. I've been a bit light with World Warships this week, although I've just been a bit light with videos this week generally. So yeah, I'll think of something to do. There's bound to be some ship that's relevant. I mean, I just bought the Incomparable not long ago, so I could probably do a video on that, if nothing else. Anyway, so if you enjoyed this video, you can hit the like button, leave any comments, or subscribe, or hit the notification bell. You can do all those good things, which, you know, apparently it helps if you remind people to do that. So yep, it would be appreciated. And of course, as always, stay tuned for more.